Hey folks, this is Rick. Welcome to our third session for sports nutrition and Ramrod. I am Rick. I'm with the Redmond Cycling Club, and with us we have Kathie and Divya to talk about our third session. Kathie, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hey everyone. So this is the third part of a three-part series. So it's the final installment of sports nutrition to get you nutritionally prepared for Ramrod. I'm Dr. Kathie Beals, and I've been a long-time academic, a professor of nutrition, was at the University of Utah for 20 years, and most recently moved back to Indiana for greener fields, literally and figuratively. So taught a little bit at the university here, and actually was just recently hired on as the official sport dietitian for all of university athletics here at Ball State. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I get to work with all the sports, including some endurance sports. I have been an endurance athlete for over 40 years. I was a cross country and track athlete in college, moved to triathlon, and have done multiple distances, including Ironmans, but have sort of retired a bit and now just spend my time enjoying training and not worrying about competition. So yeah, that's me.
Good to see you again, Kathie. Divya, you want to do a quick intro?
Hi everyone, this is Divya. Um, I've done one Ramrod in 2023, and this is going to be my second this year. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Divya's been helping us with some of the logistics behind the scenes. Divya is one of our amazing volunteers that without volunteers, Ramrod is not possible. So I wanted to thank Divya and also all the volunteers as we move into our next edition of Ramrod. As we're recording this, we are a couple of weeks outside of Ramrod. So looking forward to the ride. Just a quick disclaimer, the topics that we're going to be discussing during this session is really for education and entertainment purposes. Please consult a professional on specific medical advice that we have. So we are again a couple weeks outside of the big ride. From a topics perspective, what we want to kind of cover today was looking at your nutrition, the week of, day of as well. We'll also do a kind of an overview course preview of what to look for in terms of the various stops and what folks should be looking at in terms of nutrition and also food and electrolytes as well during the ride. With that, I'll hand it over to Kathie to kind of cover some of the topics we have on tap here. Okay, so we are now a week out from Ramrod, and so I wanted to kind of talk to Kathie about what should folks be doing from a nutrition perspective to start getting ready for this ride.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you through the final week and up to the day before, and then we'll look at during what you should be doing. So, in your final week, with respect to nutrition prep, one of the most important things that you can do, and one of the things that I find is sometimes difficult for endurance athletes, is to taper. This is not the time to be thinking, gosh, I need to throw in one more really long or one more really intense ride. I don't feel like I'm prepared. I need to do one more training ride. Don't do it. Most endurance athletes err on the side of overtraining. I count myself in there, and I learned the hard way that honestly, some of the best races that I had, I got very busy at work, and so I wasn't able to really do much anything the week before. And I was very well rested, and I had great races. So taper, definitely taper. And I'm sure if you've been working with a coach, that's something they've drummed in your heads as well. So as you're looking to, did you have a question, Rick? No. Okay. As
No, I
you're
was
looking,
going to say that the Ramrod Training Series will start tapering as well. So we've been doing obviously more extensive and longer rides, but the week of and the we'll start to taper as well. So yes, taper, taper, taper.
taper, taper, taper. I think rest is oftentimes it's the importance of rest is overlooked and definitely not overrated. So rest. So 6 days out, you want to maintain a high level of carbohydrate intake. So that's the other mistake that athletes often make is they think, well, now that I'm not training so hard, I can cut back on my carbs. No, you want to maintain your carbohydrate intake very similar to what you were doing along the lines of sort of your moderate intensity days, moderate intensity and duration days. So shooting for about 7 to 8 grams per kilogram of body weight for sort of the 5 to 6 days leading up to the event. 2 days out, bump your carbs up just a little bit, and you want to back off on your fiber intake. If you're one like me, I'm actually a lacto-ovo pesco vegetarian, so I eat lots of grains and plant foods and that type of thing. But you want to start cutting back on your fiber for a couple of reasons. Fiber takes a long time to digest and mostly isn't digested, and so it can slow things down and cause things to stay in your gut longer than you want them to. And so you really want to lower your fiber intake. So when you think about your carbs, if you're normally like, I only eat whole grains, I only eat, things that have lots of fiber, it's okay to have white pasta and things that tend to be, a regular plain old bagel, not a whole wheat, multi-grain brand thing, right? So it's okay to do that.
So in this case, would it be fair to say more juice and less fruit?
Sorry, what was the question?
The question was more juice, less fruit would be the way to look at it.
Yes, yes. So, and then the day before, you want to really up your carbs, and it should be throughout the day, right? Gone are the days when we like carbo load at dinner, right? Because that's going to leave you feeling really heavy. It may interrupt your sleep. So you probably want to eat a little earlier than you might. So if normally you're eating at 10 o'clock at night, probably not a good idea to do that. Try to eat your last big meal somewhere around 5 to 6 o'clock at night, and then maybe have a snack or two before you go to bed. But sleep before the race is also really important, even though a lot of times people have nerves and jitters, so it's harder to sleep. You don't want anything else that's going to make it that much harder.
Makes sense. And I think at the same time, um, using these tips during RTS is also something we should do. Like trying something new 2 days before the race, um,
Yes.
your body can react in different ways.
Yes, good point, Divya. Thank you for pointing that out. Sometimes I just assume that everybody knows that, so I don't even say it. But yes, absolutely. Making sure that, especially in the 2 days leading up to the race, stick with familiar foods. This is not a time to go out and, say, "Ooh, there's a new Indian restaurant I want to try." And you don't usually eat that kind of food. Or, I just heard about this Mexican restaurant that opened up. And by the way, beans are really high in fiber. So probably should stay away from things like burritos and chimichangas and all the things with lots of beans. So, good point. Thanks, Divya. All right. So I showed this chart before, I think in both of the previous nutrition presentations. So I want to highlight it again, but show you here's what we're focusing on in the 2 days, but definitely the day before. So you want to up your carb intake to the 10 to 12 gram per kilogram of body weight. And whether you're at the lower range, 10 or 12, would really sort of depend upon what your goals are with the event. If you are super competitive and you're planning on riding at an intense level for the whole time period, and you're hoping to break records and win the race, then you're probably up closer to 12. If you're like, I just want to finish, you can be down around 10. So that's why it's nice to have a range. You can sort of pick where you want to be based on sort of how you anticipate your intensity is going to be. And we are now on the next couple of slides going to focus on this, the pre-event fueling, so the morning of and then during. But before I get into the morning of and during, I want to highlights a chart over here that shows you again why we as sports dietitians and why in this presentation I am focusing so heavily on carbohydrates, carbs, carbs, carbs. So the primary fuel that you will be using during this ride is glucose, glycogen from your muscle and some glucose from the blood, which originates from the liver. So muscle glycogen is what you're going to be utilizing. And what I wanted to show you is that here is intensity. So nobody's going to be riding because it's a really long distance. Nobody's going to be riding at 120 or 150% of your max, right? Because you need to go longer than 10 minutes, right? So, but if we come out here, most people are going to be going between 64% of their max, and maybe on some of the tougher climbs where you're really upping your intensity, you're going to be going 83% of max. This is showing you utilization, and this is, I picked one that showed the legs because your legs are going to be doing the work while you're on the bike. This shows you how quickly you will deplete at these different intensities. So what I wanted to highlight here is, let's say, and 64% VO2 max is a pretty, I would say that it's pretty right on target where most of you all are going to be on your ride. Like I said, you might come up to here a little bit. Maybe when you're coasting down a hill, you're going to be here. But notice that depletion, if you don't consume any carbohydrates at all, you're going to be depleted in 2 hours. Rick, how long does it take on average for people to finish this race?
That can vary. I would say for myself, I try to or say beginning to end around 12 hours. And so start to finish is around 12 hours for me. And that includes all the stop time as well.
12 hours, which is significantly more than 2.
Yep.
So if you didn't eat any carbs at all, you'd be done at 2. Okay. And so I always feel like a picture's worth 1,000 words, because sometimes I feel like that people think that we are making this up about the carbohydrate and that somehow we're getting kickback from the companies that make carbohydrate rich foods. I don't know, but there's a real reason that we harp on carbs. So even if you were only doing 30% of your max, which if you were doing 30% of your max, Rick, it would probably take you 24 hours to finish it. You're looking at 180 minutes, right? So you've got to consume carbs. You've got to consume carbs. And that leads me very nicely into, let's talk about what to do the morning of, what to do during. We're not going to focus on this afterwards part. So we're going to focus on this part right here. Okay. So before you get up in the morning, let me flip back over here. So the rule of thumb is that you should consume a carbohydrate-rich meal in the 1 to 4 hour period before your event. And the rule of thumb is 1 gram of carbs per kilogram of body weight. If it's 1 hour, 2 grams. If it's 2 hours, 3 grams, 3 and 4 grams, 4. Notice that on my example here, I only did 2 and 3. And the reason that I did that is that the sweet spot, if you ever play tennis, you know what the sweet spot is. The sweet spot of that 1 to 4 hour period is really 2 to 3 hours. What time does the event start, Rick?
It's going to be between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. So it again depends on some folks like to start a little later. So if you're talking about working back, right, that means getting up at
Yeah.
2 or 3 in the morning to
Yeah,
get something to eat.
exactly. Exactly. So it's hard for a lot of people to do 4 hours before because most events are starting early in the morning. Yours is particularly early, right? So most of the events that I do usually start somewhere between 7 and 9. But even then, I'm not going to want to get up at 4 in the morning to eat something. I'm just not. And if you're starting at 5 in the morning, you work back from 4 hours, it's like, I really don't think anybody's going to get up at 1 or 2 in the morning to eat. So 2 to 3 is probably your sweet spot. If you're going to be starting at 5 in the morning, getting up at 3 is even going to be rough. So you can titrate it back to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight and then just figure out that it's going to be sort of half of the meal that I have here. But what I did is, of course, everybody's going to be different because it's based on weight. So if it's 2 hours before, you're looking at about 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And I chose a 70 kilogram individual. And I gave you what that looked like. And I know this is correct because I plugged it all into MyFitnessPal. I made sure that it actually was about 140 grams. I think I came up to 138, so it's a little low. This one was exactly 210. So you can see 3 hours before. Now, a couple things to keep in mind, and I probably should have added familiar foods here too. It should be high in carbohydrate. Why? Because what we're trying to do here is basically top off our muscle glycogen. It's like if I'm going to, let's say I've got a half a tank of gas and I'm trying to drive 400 miles, I want to top off my gas tank before I make that 400-mile drive. So the idea is I've consumed carbohydrates the night before or the day before. I should be pretty well topped off, but this is just my last chance to top off. If you did really well of eating 10 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight the day before, you probably don't even need to do this amount. Like you can wake up an hour before and do half this because your muscle glycogen hasn't gone anywhere since the day before, especially if you have followed the advice of tapering. As long as you didn't do anything crazy exercise-wise, most of the glycogen in your muscles will still be there. What you're doing with your breakfast is really replenishing liver glycogen because liver glycogen continues to deplete overnight. Because liver glycogen supports blood glucose, which supports your brain, which is still active while you're sleeping. So this is what a 2 hour before would look like if you're 70 kilograms. This is 3 hours before. It's a lot of food for 3 hours before. You have to keep in mind, what is your tolerance level, right? Some people can tolerate a fairly big breakfast. Some people can't. If you can't tolerate a big breakfast, don't worry about that. Make sure that you have really fueled well the day before. If you're like, I can eat a big breakfast, then go ahead and have at it. High carb, low fat, because fat doesn't contribute to glycogen resynthesis. Fat delays gastric emptying, so it slows digestion down. So you're not going to get the carbs in your muscles before your event like you want. Same thing with protein. It doesn't really contribute to glycogen replenishment, and it tends to slow digestion down. So high carb, low fat, low protein. And to Divya's point before, familiar. Okay. This is not the time to go about and get a burrito. Okay. Unless that's what you've been training with throughout the last 3 months. Okay. So make it easy to digest, familiar, high in carbs. Good.
Good.
All right. So we start off on our ride. Now, the recommendation for carbohydrate intake during exercise is 30 to 60 grams per hour. Where did that come from? Again, nobody made this up. Maximal carbohydrate oxidation rates, meaning how much carbs can I burn per minute when I'm exercising, is about 1 to 1.2 grams per minute on average. Last I checked, 1 gram per minute would be 60 grams in an hour. So that's where that recommendation came from. Nobody made it up, didn't come out of thin air. It's based on that. Now, keep in mind, that is oxidation of carbohydrate if all I was burning was carbohydrate. So if the only fuel I was utilizing during the event was carbohydrate. We know that unless I'm exercising at 100% or really anything higher than 90% of my max, I'm oxidizing both carbohydrate and fat. And the closer I am to max, the relatively greater amount of carbs relative to fat that I'm oxidizing, the lower intensity, still a mix of carbs and fats, but relatively more fat than carbs. At about 60% of max, which is, I would suspect that most of you all, if we were going to average your intensity over the ride, you'd probably be somewhere between 60 and 75% of max. In that range, you're probably going to be oxidizing about 60% carbs with 40%. So again, if we think that this is if I'm at max, so 60 grams per hour, that's pretty optimal, but it's also maximal. If consuming that much carbs is hard on your gut, you're like, oh, I just can't get 60 grams in, then it's okay. You'll probably be just fine at 45. So again, the amount of carbs that you oxidize, that you use during exercise is going to be directly related to the intensity that you're riding. Higher intensity, you're oxidizing more carbs. Lower intensity, less carbs, more fat. So you can kind of gauge, what do I need to replace based on that? Also think about what you have been used to doing during training. This is not the time to say, gosh, I should probably, I read that people can actually use up to 90 grams of carbs per hour. Maybe I'll try that. That is a sure way to GI distress and the end of your race. Okay. So go with what you've been practicing, what you've been training. Try not to steer too clear or go too far from that. Okay. Fluid replacement, again, the idea is that you're replacing what you lose. And what you lose will depend on individual sweat rates, as well as what is the weather doing that day. If it's overcast and misting rain, you're probably not going to be sweating a lot. So fluid replacement can be on the lower end. If it's a hot, sunny day and you're sweating a lot, then you need to go to the higher end. Okay. Again, you probably want to stick to close to what you've been doing in training. All right, I'm going to stop for a minute and
Yep.
Rick's going to take you through kind of the course.
Yep. So just to reinforce the nothing new in terms of variables that you've been training with. I think with Ramrod, it's such a long ride. It's introducing new variables can lead to different things and different outcomes. So let's talk about a little bit about the ride. So Ramrod this year, it's we're going counter or clockwise, starting Evenclaw. Total miles is 159.1 miles. It's 9,941 feet of climbing. We start at Enumclaw. We start off the bat in terms of climbing. So just to go back to what you're saying about intensity, is we're not on the flats at the very beginning. You're going to be climbing up through Cayuse Pass, or sorry, Crystal Mountain, and also Cayuse Pass as well. So from an intensity level, the intensity level should be right up there as you're climbing through these hills. We're gonna drop down from Cayuse Pass into Packwood, take a right up to Skate Creek, and then the folks will traverse through Ashford, Eatonville, and then back into Enumclaw. Again, we're looking at 160 miles of mileage and also about 10,000 feet of climbing. In terms of stops, we have four main food stops. There'll be a stop at the base of Crystal Mountain, which will include food. There'll be a hydration stop at the top of Crystal Mountain. You can work your way back to Crystal Base to get more food if you wanted to. After Crystal Mountain, you're going to be climbing up through Cayuse Pass. There's no food services there. We'll probably have a checkpoint, an RFID checkpoint, and you'll be at around 53 miles at the top of Cayuse. When you drop down to the Packwood, we'll have another food stop around the 76-mile marker. And then you'll go through the next stop, which is at 102 miles, which is the Ashford mini stop, which will have water and croissant and ice as well. 20 miles later is the Eatonville Deli Stop. We'll have a full deli style stop and food available there. And then around 159 miles is the stop at Enumclaw. Ice cream truck will be there, so looking forward to that celebration. I'll hand it over back to you in terms of Kathie, in terms of how we talk through what folks do at each stop. I think you're muted, Kathie.
Sorry. Yeah, I muted myself. Thanks, Rick. So in the spirit of keeping things similar, not experimenting with new things on the day of the event, most of you have probably been training with some sports foods, whether it's a sports drink or gels or gummies or electrolyte tabs or whatever it is that you've been doing. You would be very wise to bring with you the sports products that you've been using. And so, keeping in mind that most of you probably only have two water bottle holders on your bike, and especially if you're starting right off of the climb, you probably don't want to have the extra weight on there. So, having if your sports drink that you prefer comes in a powder, having little bags of your powder so that you can mix up more of what you're used to at the stops because they'll have water there would probably be your best bet. The electrolyte, sports drink and electrolyte replacement drink that will be available at the stops is Gatorade. And it's a, pretty popular, pretty well-known drink, but not everybody uses it. So if this is not a drink that you utilize, I would say try to bring, however you can, what you're used to. All right. The other thing that I can tell you is that what they have mixed up at the stops will be 1/2 strength Gatorade, which gives you about 7 grams in that should be 8 fluid ounce, not an 8 fluid ox, but 8 fluid ounces, which is, it's really, the amount of carbs in that amount is too low to really significantly impact or aid glycogen replacement or add to what's needed for blood glucose maintenance. So that's really more, think about this as almost like a flavored water, like if you were doing a no calorie like Propel or Gatorade Zero. So, but they will have the Gatorade powder, so you can add to what they've already made up for you, or you can make your own using plain water and put it in your bottle however you want. But just note that regular strength Gatorade is 14 grams. Half strength is going to give you 7 grams for about 8 fluid ounces. And remember, what we're looking for is 30 to 60 grams per hour. Probably 30 is going to be a little bit low for most of you, but most of you could probably do just fine with 45 grams per hour, especially if you tend to have GI distress. I was given the menu for what you will have at your stops. So at stops 1 and 2, which are approximately mile 32 and mile 36, there will be bagels with peanut butter and jam. What you see here is the amount and what the approximate amount of carbs are in each one of the foods. So again, if you're aiming for 30 to 60 grams per hour, it gives you a sense for what you're going to do. So let's say that you do a bagel with some peanut butter, that gets you right about 60 grams. So you could certainly have one of those, and that will get you your 60 grams for the next hour. Now, again, for some of you, doing a whole bagel with peanut butter all at once might cause GI distress. So you may want to have half of it. They're going to have baggies there. So put the other half in a bag and stick it in your jersey pocket for later. Okay. Jam is great because it's got 14 grams, but it can get pretty messy. So that'd be kind of, it's going to get sticky and messy if you're trying to eat it on the bike. So, you might want to eat that there. I love that they're using steamed potatoes. I actually consult with Potatoes USA and have long recommended potatoes as a wonderful carbohydrate to consume during, especially if sweet things are not very palatable to you, which tends to happen in the later stages of the race. So we'll talk about that last stop. That's when people start losing their taste for sweet stuff and they really want something more savory. So they're going to have steamed potatoes with salt and Parmesan in little grab and go bags. Grab one of those, stick it in your jersey pocket. Bananas are great. Apparently I put 2 S's on great. Sorry about that. 27 grams per banana. And again, easily can stick in your jersey pocket. The reason I keep talking about jersey pocket is because remember that for a lot of people, eating a large amount of solid food and then immediately to getting back on the bike and pedaling is going to be difficult. And so over here, I have some reminders. When I eat solid food, as opposed to drinking a sports drink, when I eat solid food, I have to digest that food. If I'm digesting, what's going to happen is it's going to pull blood away from the muscles. So it's going to make it more difficult for my muscles to contract and do what they're supposed to do. So, the image that I tell people about is, remember when you're a kid, people would say, can you pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time? It's kind of the same thing. It's like the blood can't be in your digestive tract and at your muscles at the same time. So one of two things is going to happen. If digestion wins, it's going to pull blood away from the muscles, and you're going to have a difficult time, especially if you have to go immediately into a climb. If the muscles win, then that means that the food's going to sit in your stomach. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get GI distress. Okay. So you probably want to keep what you shove down your throat at this stop fairly minimal, and just sort of think about, let me eat a little bit at the stop, throw some stuff in my jersey pocket, and then nibble on it when I'm on a flat or on a downhill. Okay.
It's also, not to interrupt you, but if you look at the mile stops for food, right, you're looking at mile 32 and then looking at mile 76. So 44 miles between each stop in terms of food. So just the recommendation of putting something in your jersey pocket makes a lot of sense. Also for folks as well, is there's going to be some water stops along the way. Like for example, on top of Cayuse and also Crystal. Again, those are water stops. So there won't be any food there as well. So putting something in your pocket makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yep. And the organizers did an awesome job of picking foods that are high in carbs, low in fat, low in protein. They did an awesome job of picking things that are easily transportable, that you can stick in your jersey pocket, not going to make a huge mess, right? So stick the banana in there, munch on a couple of grapes, and back on your bike. Okay. Let's look at stop number 3. Stop number 3, you have some more choices and some more food. Oh, Divya, did you have a question? Oh, you're clapping. Okay. So stop number 3, you've got some more choices and just a couple of things to keep in mind. So remember that you're not done with the race yet. So you probably don't want to celebrate and eat a big meal at this stop. So there are going to be made to order sandwiches. Again, think about when you're thinking about what you want to put in that sandwich, that you want to keep it pretty low in protein and low in fat. And so you probably don't want to do a ton of roast beef and heavy on the mayo and all that stuff, right? So maybe have one slice of protein, maybe a little bit of tomato and a piece of lettuce, right? Keep it pretty low in fiber, low in fat, low in protein. Focus on the bread in that sandwich. Chips are great, especially because they're savory, they're salty. People tend to like chips in the later stages of an endurance event. They're good for the sodium, but the chips can be pretty high in fat. So you probably don't want to eat a lot of them. Maybe a handful of chips, keep it at that. Pickles and pickle juice shots. I would stay away from anything that's too spicy. So they're going to have spicy kosher dills, but if you're not a spicy person, or spicy could be a little bit hard on the gut. So be careful with that. Again, fruit's going to be your best choice from a not upset your GI, rich in carbs. Fruits are also really high in fluid. So you are taking care of two things at the same time. You're getting your carbs, you're getting your fluid. Throw another banana in your jersey pocket, grab a piece of watermelon, eat that there. I'm sorry that I don't know what a ramrod cookie is, so I wasn't able to comment on that, but throw a couple in your jersey pocket. And then the same things to remember. Okay. We're going to skip that. If we have time, we can go back to that, because maybe I don't know, there's ice cream at the end. I don't know if there's beer at the end, but there's ice cream. Rick had specifically asked me to talk about bonking. So I found this this cute a diagram that it actually came from a cycling group. Word of the day, bonking. And so you can see that it's a verb, and it's a present participle, actually, if you're really into grammar. And they have both an informal and formal use of it in a sentence. But bonking, that it's the layman's term for what technically is happening is you're suffering from either muscle and or liver glycogen depletion. The problem with bonking is it's usually a point of no return. And I say that meaning that because when you bonk in a race, you don't have an hour to replenish and then continue on, right? You're trying to like, what can I do in a few minutes to keep going? And unfortunately, if you truly bonk, it's going to take more than a few minutes to get you back to where you need to be. So prevention is the key. Prevention, prevention, prevention. Maintain a high rate of carbohydrate replacement, 30 to 60 grams per hour. That should be jammed into your head. The best triathlon races I ever did, because biking was in a triathlon, if you think about it, you can't really eat on the swim. Running, you're much more prone to get GI distress, so you have to be really careful what you're eating running. So for most triathletes, where they're going to get their greatest nutrition is on the bike. And my best races, I actually set my alarm on my watch to go off every 20 minutes. And every 20 minutes, I ate 20 to 30 grams of carbs. That's what I did. And the races that I didn't do well, I just sort of flew by the seat of my pants and I didn't have a schedule. So, and I did it because I knew that if I bonked, that would be the end of my day, because I don't have an hour to get replenished and get back on. I mean, I do, but my goal wasn't just to finish, right? So if you have bonked, it's very difficult, near impossible to bounce back. It's kind of a point of no return. That being said, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to bonk. What can you do? What you're going to have to do is significantly slow down your intensity. You're going to have to do it anyways. Your body's just not going to let you go. So you're going to slow down your intensity, try to do some soft pedaling. If you have to stop, stop and get carbs in. And you want to get the most rapidly absorbed carbs, which are fluid carbs. So this would not be the time to be eating your bagel. You could probably get by with a banana, because the digestion of a banana is not that difficult, but fluid carbs are probably going to be your best bet because it's going to get absorbed right away. You don't have to digest it. It just gets absorbed. It's going to get rapidly into your bloodstream. Okay. And then once you get back on your bike, frequent small amounts, like every 5 to 10 minutes, try to get, you know, a half or a quarter of a gel shot or some more sports drinks. Or if you have a banana, a couple of bites of banana, keep pedaling, a couple more bites of banana, right? So try to do it that way.
Yeah, also to reinforce is like for folks is, I mean, Ramrod, it's not a race, right? So go at your own pace. If
Right.
you, unfortunately, if you do bonk, right, I mean, do what you can in terms of bouncing back. I love that. I love that suggestion. It's like, you're gonna have to soft pedal in this case. You're gonna have to take a break. You're trying to get your nutrition back on track
Yeah.
to recover. Again, it's not a race, so I hope folks know that you can recover in a sense of getting back on the bike because it's
Right.
kind of go at your own pace, though.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. I guess I'm so used to, people, and even if it's not a race, a lot of times people do have like a time in mind that they're trying to hit or beat or something. So it may be a race within themselves, but the point being that keeping in mind that the blood has to go somewhere, digestion or muscles. And so when you have bonked, the priority should be digestion and absorption because you're trying to get that glucose back in. Your muscles aren't going to work anyways. So you might as well slow down, stop so you can replenish and then get back on the road. And that's
That's it.
what I had.
Cool.
Oops.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for your time and the info here. I think you wanted to kind of cover how folks can get in touch with you.
Yeah. Is that slide still coming up?
Yep, we can see
Yeah.
it.
So this is my email. This is the best way to reach me. If you have specific questions, I wish you all the luck in the world. I hope you have a great ride. It sounds epic. So
Thank you so much, Kathie.
good
Thanks so much,
luck.
Divya. Hopefully, folks found this informational helpful. We will see you on the course. Look for more information on our website and also our Facebook group. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kathy. Bye.